1903, inside Gough's Cave in Cheddar Gorge, England, workers pulled out a nearly complete human skeleton. They named him Cheddar Man, 10,000 years old, the oldest complete skeleton ever found in Britain. For over a century, scientists assumed he looked like the people around him today. Pale skin, fair features, British in every sense. Then in 2018, geneticists extracted DNA from his skull and sequenced it. The results made no sense. Cheddar Man had blue eyes, but skin dark enough to stand out in Ghana. A 10,000-year-old Englishman, darker than most modern Nigerians, with eyes the color of the North Sea. Something had happened to human skin, and it happened stranger and more recently than anyone expected. To understand what, we have to go back past Britain entirely, to the moment our species first stepped into the sun. 300,000 years ago, in what is now Morocco, the first modern humans walked under a punishing equatorial sun. But their bodies hadn't started that way. Strip the fur off a chimpanzee, our closest living relative, and underneath is pale skin, the ancestral color every hominin once carried. Around 2 million years ago, early humans left shaded forests for open, blistering savanna. To hunt in that heat without collapsing, their bodies made a trade. They shed thick body hair and evolved millions of sweat glands to release heat through evaporation. But bare skin under direct sun is vulnerable. Genetic evidence shows a decisive sweep through the human genome, roughly 1.2 million years ago, locking in dense, dark pigmentation. For over 1 million years, every human on Earth was dark-skinned. Not by chance. Something inside that skin was being protected. For decades, scientists thought the answer was skin cancer. It sounded obvious. More sunlight means more ultraviolet radiation. More ultraviolet radiation means more skin cancer. Dark skin protects against ultraviolet damage, so evolution must have favored it. Except, the timeline doesn't work. Most skin cancers appear after reproductive age, long after people have already had children. Natural selection is weak against traits that strike after reproduction. The real threat was invisible. Ultraviolet radiation destroys folate, a vitamin essential for fetal development and healthy sperm production. Lose enough folate, and birth defects rise, fertility drops, and survival suffers. Dark skin wasn't protecting people from cancer. It was protecting the next generation before it was even born. The pigment called melanin became one of evolution's greatest shields. But every shield comes with a cost. And that cost would appear the moment humans walked away from Africa. Around 70,000 years ago, small groups of humans began leaving Africa. Generation after generation, they crossed the Middle East, spread into Europe, and eventually reached northern Asia. The farther they traveled, the weaker the sunlight became. The same dark skin that had protected them for millions of years now blocked too much ultraviolet B, the specific wavelength needed to produce vitamin D. Without enough vitamin D, children's leg bones began to bow. Adults became weaker. Immune systems struggled. Dark skin had solved one evolutionary problem. Now it was creating another. For the first time in human history, natural selection began pushing in the opposite direction. Not because dark skin was wrong, because the environment had changed. The color that once guaranteed survival near the equator could become a disadvantage beneath cloudy northern skies. Evolution wasn't choosing better skin. It was choosing skin that matched the sunlight. Inside human DNA, evolution found an answer. A tiny mutation in a gene called SLC24A5 reduced the amount of melanin the body produced. It didn't happen overnight. For thousands of years, people with slightly lighter skin produced more vitamin D, survived a little better, and had more surviving children. Generation after generation, the mutation spread. By around 8,000 years ago, it had become common across much of Europe. But here's the twist. Cheddar Man lived just before that genetic shift reached Britain. That's why his DNA still carried dark skin, even though he lived in what is now England. His appearance wasn't unusual for his time. Our assumptions were. The face that shocked the modern world wasn't an exception to history. It was history. Europe wasn't the only place where skin became lighter. In East Asia, different populations followed a different genetic path. Instead of relying mainly on SLC24A5, evolution favored other genes, including SLC45A2 and OCA2. The destination was similar. The route was completely different. Scientists call this convergent evolution. Different populations, facing the same environmental pressure, arrived at similar solutions independently. Human skin didn't lighten once. It lightened multiple times in multiple places through different genetic changes. The map of human pigmentation wasn't written by race. It was written by sunlight. The farther our ancestors moved from the equator, the more evolution rewrote the color of their skin. But even that pattern had remarkable exceptions. If sunlight controlled skin color so completely, one question remained. Why didn't the Inuit of the Arctic evolve extremely pale skin? The answer wasn't in the sky. It was in their food. For thousands of years, their diet was rich in fish and marine mammals, naturally packed with vitamin D. They didn't need lighter skin to produce enough of it. Diet had solved the problem before evolution needed to. At the same time, snow reflected large amounts of ultraviolet radiation, increasing exposure even in the far north. The relationship between skin color and latitude was never a simple rule. It was always a balance between sunlight, food, genetics, and time. Human evolution never follows a straight line. It follows opportunity. Today, human skin color still reflects that ancient journey. But the world has changed faster than evolution can keep up. People now live far from the environments that shaped their ancestors for thousands of years. The old map no longer fits perfectly. Dark skin can thrive in northern cities. Light skin can thrive near the equator. Modern medicine, nutrition, and technology have changed the rules. What once depended entirely on sunlight no longer does. Cheddar Man was never a contradiction. He was a reminder. The story of human skin was never about race. It was always about adaptation. The color of our skin isn't a marker of separate origins. It's a living record of where our ancestors walked, how they survived, and how evolution responded to the world around them. But this wasn't humanity's greatest test. The greatest challenge was still waiting. When the Ice Age arrived, temperatures fell to minus 59 degrees Celsius, and survival became the greatest fight our ancestors had ever faced. That's the story you'll discover in the next video.